Hey everyone, thanks for joining us tonight for political education and action around why defund the police. Um, as we all know, on April 11th, Dante Wright was murdered by Brooklyn Center police, and we're dealing with the fallout from that. We're grieving, and we're also taking action. So this is definitely a time in a space of folks wanting to take action that we are acknowledging that folks also might want to know like what our vision is for defund and why we're saying defund when our people get murdered, right? By the police. Why are we saying that we can't fix the system, that another reform isn't gonna help? So we're gonna spend the next 30 to 45 minutes together talking about that. And I'll be joined by some of my amazing colleagues and comrades here in Madison from Freedom Inc. and Freedom Action Now to share with you again our vision for community control, and then how different parts of our work connect to that, and or how we're working to make that happen, and how we would like to invite you all at home and out in the community and the folks who show up at these actions with us to actually join us shoulder to shoulder in this work. So we're gonna get started in a couple more minutes here. Go ahead and share this link. Go ahead and like it, tag your friends and family. And again, we'll get started in a minute here. Okay, let's go ahead and get started. Again, welcome everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. We know that this is a heavy, heavy time. A lot of us are still wrapping our minds around this right now, and still grieving. And yet we know that this is also a time to take action. In moments like these, when it can seem like there's nothing that we can do, um, it's important that those of us who are leaders in the community share with everyone what our vision for something better is, for freedom is, and invite everyone to join us in that. And we know the power of our community. We know what Madison can do, what Black, Southeast Asian, Latinx, Madison can do when we come together. Um, it, we saw the power of collective power, right? Last summer, we were able to get the police out of our schools and start working towards implementing transformative justice and accountability and community control within our schools. We were able to get a police oversight board, right? Something that we've been working towards for the better part of 10 years here in Madison. So we know what we can do when we come together, and this is yet another call to action that's grounded in a vision that really stems from Black queer radical feminisms. And so um, before we go too much further, I want to give us a moment to acknowledge, yeah, just the gravity of the moment, and that we um, are living on land that was stolen um, from indigenous peoples. We're also living on land where um, um, murder took place to maintain the control that the white elite have in this area as well, and for them to allow them to hoard wealth and create the systems that we're actually battling with today. So we do want to acknowledge that. Um, we also wanted to make sure that we again acknowledge and uplift that we're called together in this moment. What has sparked this moment is the murder of Dante Wright, a 20-year-old black boy, really, um, who was shot and killed by Brooklyn Center police um, on the 11th. And that's something that's really heavy and that a lot of people are sitting with right now. So we do want to acknowledge that. And we do want to say that ground this PE session in the fact that we are not looking for reformist ways of moving forward. Our demands are not to fix the police; they are to get rid of them and get them out of our way, so that we can build the world that we want to see and that will actually serve our people, where folks are not getting murdered by police for everyday things, right? Um, and also, so without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and allow our panelists to introduce themselves. Um, and I'm going to go ahead and start with Crystal from Freedom Inc.
Hey everyone, my name is Crystal. Pronouns she, her, hers. I'm the Community Power Building Manager at Freedom Inc. And I'm going to pass it to my colleague, Miss Jewel.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Jewel. My pronouns are she, her, and hers, and I am a community power lead here at Freedom Inc. And I'll pass it to Panyu.
Hey everyone, my name is Pengyu Mo. I go by Pengyu, he, him pronouns, and I am an organizer at Freedom Action Now.
Where am I go?
Thank y'all so much for introducing yourselves. And I am going to ask that everyone just mute when they're not talking so we don't get like, you know, amazing feedback. Um, so yeah, one thing I want to open this with, because I think we really have a tendency to get wrapped up in the rhetoric of it all and the analysis of it all. And I really want to start off this conversation by asking each of you, you know, when did you realize that we needed to defund the police? Where was that point in your journey when you really realized that? And I'll go ahead and start with Panyu since you were last.
Hmm, I think that I didn't truly understand the importance of defunding the police um, and building something better that would solve the root issues until I got involved with Freedom Inc. To be perfectly honest, I think that I knew there was an issue there. Um, I definitely saw the large issues in society and the injustice going on. Um, but I think that not until I got involved with Freedom Inc. Built relationships um, and learned from the folks here that um, the foundational pieces of society, of American and Western society, is built on um, the violence that the police and the state uphold and are allowed to do. Um, in all the resources that are then used to commit those violences and taken away from our people. So I didn't, yeah, I would say um, to the question of when did I first realize the need to defund police, I don't think until I got involved with Freedom Inc. So
Yeah, and I just really want to thank you for sharing that, because I think one thing that is missed a lot of the time in the discourse around defund is how foundational the police and the protection of property and the violence and threat of violence um, that they represent and that they carry out is so foundational to the United States. Like how um, our whole social order would not even um, be maintained without the police. And I think people miss how insidious that is, right? Um how there's a whole public image built up around them to make it seem necessary and to make it seem good and to make it seem like one bad apple, when really this is a key function of their of of what they do, of their institution. So thank you for pulling that out. And I'm gonna go to Miss Jewel. When did you first realize we need to defund the police? Y'all are muted, by the way.
Sorry, can I take this down? When I first realized we needed to defund the police is when I also joined Freedom Inc. I always had a little anger when they would do something such as killing our Black kids, even our elder Black folks. But once I joined Freedom Inc. and I saw the youth team fighting hard to get the police out of schools, and then they would show little clips about how they handled the kids, which was very, very uncalled for. And then we did an action downtown on the square when we painted the grounds to defund the police. And yet they continue to do things and nothing, no justice really got served against them. And it seemed like they were getting away with more than they should. Not seem like, but they get away with too much. So yeah, let's defund the police.
Yeah, it's so wild. There's something that you brought up, Miss Jewel, like this double standard. Like the rest of us who are not supposed to be trained professionals or whatever don't get to make mistakes. When we do make mistakes, right? Like anything that they might pull us over for at a traffic violation, it could cost us our lives. And at the very least, we're paying a fine. We're going to court. Um, but they get to do things like murder people and say it was a mistake and they were afraid for their lives, and there was no accountability. And you're right, nothing happens to them. They get to resign and then get a job somewhere else or get a raise. Look at Matt Kinney here in Madison, murdered a young Black boy here in Madison and was able to get a promotion, still working at MPD. So thank you for bringing that up. So we're gonna close this part of it out with you, Crystal. When did you first realize we need to defund the police?
Okay, so for me, I think throughout my entire adult life, there's been this lingering, intense anger around that this form of terror has been consistently a part of my Black reality, about a part of Black history, and it's an intentional form of terror. So it was always this ongoing anger that this system literally exists to terrorize disproportionately specific group of people, and just the anger about that existing, and that there's ongoing has been historical investment into that system of terror. And I think when I got to Freedom Inc., it came to a point where, okay, there's a directive to address this system. We aware of this anger, this ongoing violence, this racial terror that this system continues and has oppressed for most of Black history in this country, right? But there's a directive, we can actually work towards doing something about it. So I think that it came to a point just at Freedom Inc. to where, okay, I can work towards, addressing that frustration. Yeah, so I think it's just been there. I think we lost Monica. If y'all are comfortable moving into the next part of the question phase, okay. So I think we want to start with talking about well, since I was talking about like the specific directives that FI has, right, to kind of like address this ongoing system of terror, I think that's a great place to jump right into some of the work and some of the ways to support that defund work. So I'm going to pass it off to Ms. Jewel if you want to talk about some of your work around defund and specific ways to help.
Again, first I want to thank everybody for joining us here tonight. And before coming to Freedom Inc., I never even thought that my voice could make a difference, and now that I have got some knowledge from my team here at Freedom Inc., that my voice can make a difference in it, I think that we all should come together and join in and learn what do we could do and how we all can pull together to defund the police, because seeing what they're doing to us, I think we can do better with each other and helping each other out. We can take care of our own. We can run our own community. We can police our own area where we live. We should not have to be scared if someone calls the police and my 22-year-old son is outside and they say, "Hey, you," and he don't turn around, that he might get shot down. And that's where sometimes I'm at, So if we come together and work together and defund the police, I think we can get it done. And with that money that we defund the police with, we can help our own community. We can train up our youths. We can have job training events. We can have housing for some of our homeless. We can have free beds at treatment centers for some of the people with substance abuse. Give them a free bed at a treatment center instead of locking them up in Dane County Jail. We could have free mental health patient health care. Well, there's a lot of things that we could do with that money when we take it away, which we are going to do, take it away from the police. So let's all come together and work together as one. Join us at Freedom Inc. If you need.
Ms. Jewel, you're really
getting into. I'm getting into my feelings, and
you're really getting. You're really, Ms. Jewel, getting into. No, you're getting into the why of it all, right? In our vision, right? Defunding the police isn't the end all be all, because the police were messing us over when they budget was nothing, right? When they were a band of slave catchers. The police were doing us dirty with dogs and nightsticks, right? During the civil rights movement, when their budget wasn't as out of control as it is right now. And so you're right. It's about defunding the police, but also this bigger vision of community control. So I want to thank y'all for opening us up in that way. And I'm gonna go into now, John, if you can share the presentation. I'm gonna go into what is Freedom Inc.'s vision for Black people, for Southeast Asian folks in Madison, right? In terms of how we relate to each other around safety and the way that we actually allocate our funds. And then I'm going to come back to you all for you all to talk about the specific ways that you connect to that work and how your day-to-day organizing work actually makes that vision come to be true, right? Because one thing people talk about is like, y'all done raised all this money, y'all done did all this stuff, and we not free yet. When we gonna get free? And uh, I always go back to something that Kayla Reed, who is the leader of Action St. Louis, and just an amazing organizing mind, right, and leader in the movement for Black Lives. She says that powerful protests must become powerful campaigns. And campaigns take years, right? The civil rights movement that we know now today, that really got really huge and well known in the 60s, was actually started during Jim Crow era and during after the First World War. So it takes years to build campaigns and to change things systemically, right? Especially when we're looking at how much money and resources and history is invested in white supremacy and patriarchy and terrorizing Black people in this country. And so I'm going to move us into like Freedom Inc. looks at this, and then we can look at the on the ground, concrete examples of how we do that. These slides are from a presentation that Melody McCurtis and Melody's over in Milwaukee at Metcalf Park Community Bridges. We put this together last summer doing a presentation for the Trans Law Center organizing intensive that they did. And so really it's looking at and the question was, what is defund? And why are you guys saying to defund police? And we took we explained like what different campaigns we're looking to do and accomplish in the Midwest. And there were folks from the East Coast and the South and the West Coast that explained what they were looking to do as well. And so if you go to the next slide, you'll see that in the Midwest, we have very active and thriving defund police campaigns that have been going on, and work has been happening on them for years, right? And so this is not something that's new. This is not something that we just popped up with, but oftentimes in movement, there's the top door knocking and PE sessions and community meetings, and then there's the high momentum times that's highly visible. That's about mass mobilization, and that oftentimes gets sparked when the specific type of violence that we're talking about tearing down actually happens, right? And it happens in a very public way. And so people start to say, oh my God, that's terrible. What do we do about this, right? And so you see here, Minneapolis, which is Black Visions Collective, really sparked off the global uprising last summer when George Floyd was murdered in the street he was being murdered for 10 minutes straight. And so their organizing work, which really stems from Black trans women, after the Stonewall uprising, leaving the East Coast and settling in places like Minnesota and doing the hard work that we see has built that, and the trans, Black, queer, and women-led organizing that Black Visions Collective is still doing to this day, and really their hard work that they put in really really visibilize that issue and really got some real action and things done. And then we have Chicago, BYP 100, and a bunch of other, again, Black, queer-led, and women-led and youth-led organizations. Black Youth Project are leading that work there. Then you have in Madison, Freedom Inc., Urban Triage, and other groups are leading the work here. And then in Milwaukee, you have, Metcalf and other organizations like leading that work there. So if you go over to Madison, like in the next slide, and we kind of explain like what does it mean to when we say defund the police, because there was this tension around like, do we just take some of their money and do some reforms, right? Do we take all of their money, but then what are we going to do when the bad guys commit crime, right? And so for us, our Defund the Police campaign is an intersectional one. It's about youth. It's about housing. It's about gender justice. It's about queer justice. And one through line that we see in all of that is that the occupying force that is, either committing violence or threat of violence against our communities, and sucking up our resources that we actually need to thrive, to get things like housing and transportation, and a good education, is the police. And so our campaign is an intersectional one. It focuses on shifting the way that Madison residents think about safety and shifting power into the hands of low to no income Black and Southeast Asian women, queer and trans folks, queer, trans, and intersex folks, and youth. When we say defund police, we mean defund to zero, defund all aspects of the prison industrial complex. When we say prison industrial complex here, we mean at the intersection of where the state interests, so the governing apparatus or the governing body, where their interests align with the private interests of folks who build prisons and detention centers. And so a lot of times we see the state, like the police and law enforcement, working hand in hand with development with developers and with people who build private prisons, and build prisons in general. And we see that partnership and that teaming up to create this system of control and domination over Black people, and specifically the most marginalized Black people, which are women, youth, and queer trans folks. And so, yeah, we mean, and you can't have defund without investing in the community, right? So we mean invest in community and our ability to build and maintain community safety networks that prioritize the well-being of all Black people. So this is not safety from the eyes of scared white people on State Street. This is not safety from the eyes of folks in Maple Bluff. This is not safety from the eyes of folks who live in the high rises on East Wash. This is safety from the folks who the police get used on the most, and those resources get used on policing the most, right? So safety for us, for our people. You can go ahead and go to the next slide. So defunding the police is one part of a larger vision. And our vision that we characterize as community control is that we control our destiny at every level. We are capable human beings. We are sovereign human beings. We are capable of navigating conflict and harm in our communities. We are capable of deciding how best to raise our children. We are capable of deciding what types of foods we need to eat, what type of education we need. We are capable of keeping each other safe, right? So we're saying that our vision is actually community control. We no longer need white gatekeepers or overseers, or we no longer need white people managing our affairs for us. We never did, but more now than ever, it's more apparent that they don't get it. And that middle class and upper middle class and wealthy elite people don't get it. And we're the ones who actually keep our communities running. And we should have a say and how our resources are used and how we organize our society. Because like Ms. Jewel was talking about earlier, we cannot fail worse than these so-called experts and public servants have failed us. We can't do a worse job. That is very clear. We cannot fail worse than them. And when you and Crystal and Ms. Jewel talk about this later, but it's really interesting to see when people, when our members and people who come to actions with us attend like their first city county meeting or city council meeting. These people don't know what the procedure is. These people don't know what the issue is. These people like send up here like turn back to like we. Like it's like the incompetence is clear, and the reason why we're in the situation that we're in now is very clear. And so the question here is like, how do we get to that vision? One part of it is defunding the police. You can go back, Jean. One part of it is defunding the police so that we can get the resources, so we can, one, stop the harm, one, stop the thing that is keeping us in this place that we're in a place where people are scared to send their children outside for fear of being murdered by the police, in a place where, I lived on Allied Drive for a while when I first moved here, and defunding the police means stopping the harm of every time I walked out of my house, my shoulders are stiff. I'm holding my breath. I don't know if I'm going to get pulled over today. The day-to-day normalcy of there's 3 cop cars coming one direction down Allied and there's 3 coming the other side. And that's just, day to day. Or it's 10 o'clock at night, all of a sudden there's police lights in your living room and they're looking for somebody. And they're going to be looking for somebody and we can't tell you anything. And they've shut down the whole neighborhood and all the roads coming in and out, right? They're driving willy-nilly down the trail. They got big ass guns and dogs everywhere, right? They don't care if there's kids or anything like that. So stopping that harm, right? That's what defunding the police does. And then reallocating the resources that they suck up into the things that we need. So if we even look at, Crystal's going to talk about this later when she talks about our budget work. If you look at the city of Madison's budget, the police, which is this bottom line here on this chart, use up the most of their budget is made out of the most flexible type of budget money that we have, which could be used for anything. And then they have the largest budget by far. I think they're at like 89 million right now. Look at these other things at the top that have a fraction of that budget. Things that we actually need, like transportation and libraries and things like that. And when COVID was at its height, all that our city's leadership could do was say, we have the solution. Everybody, all departments, 5% cut off your budget off top. No police department, you don't have to get a cut. In fact, we're going to give you more money. Even though if the police had eaten everyone else's cuts, their budget would have only decreased by around 18 million. And they still would have had the largest budget by far. So that's where we're at. Defunding is one part. Defunding the police is one part of getting to community control so that we can defund them and invest in community, seriously invest in community. Then we look at, if we're going to control our budgets and community well-being and stuff like that, we need to understand how the current systems work. And then we need to start preparing people to take on those positions and those roles as we're building alternatives as well. And we can't get to that step unless we're changing hearts and minds and shifting the way we think about safety, the way we think about conflict and harm in our communities, right? So the way we think about it now is a very white supremacist ideology, very plantation justice type of ideology that says when there is conflict, you need an authoritative figure to come in and lay down the law and either punish people or disappear them. So that's what we're operating off of. That's what we've been taught to believe is the only way, not only just the best way, but the only way. When in reality, we see that that is not based in any form of research or any evidence. It's just based in domination, fear, power, maintaining power and control over Black people. Right? So we need to be shifting the ways we think about that and orient ourselves closer to transformative justice, how we repair harm and how we work through it, and how we say, hey, you're still a valued member of this community. What are you going to do to make this right with us? And what support do you need? What led you down that path? Which that is actually evidence-based to produce change and produce a shift in behavior versus people getting disappeared off to prison for years on end. And they come back, they haven't changed and they've missed years of their lives and their families' lives. And now it's even harder to confront that pain and transform it. So there's that part, right? We're building alternatives. We're in training to take over those alternatives and to contend for power. And before we even get there, we need to shift hearts and minds, right? Stop harm, build alternatives, learn how to lead those alternatives, and shift hearts and minds in the way we think about this. So Jean, you can go to the last slide now. So now that we have like the basic framework down, we're going to spend the next 10 minutes talking about how we've been doing each of these different parts of getting to this vision in Madison. We've been doing it for, over 20 years, right? That Freedom Inc. has been around, and really focusing in on Freedom Inc. Really focuses in on the shifting hearts and minds and building the alternatives around around community safety. What does it mean to struggle together when harm such as some of the most violent harm such as intimate partner violence and domestic violence and sexual assault takes place? What does it mean to struggle through that as a community, to provide support for the survivor, and to stop that harm and to hold community members accountable in a transformative justice process? We also, in Freedom Inc., have been doing the work of preparing people to take leadership roles in the alternatives that we want to build. We also do the work of shifting public perception, right, around what community well-being looks like. And a lot of the leadership development work as well to get people ready to lead those alternatives. And so that's what Crystal and Ms. Jewel are going to talk about. And then Ponyu is actually going to talk about, this new way of building power and getting to that community control vision, which is Freedom Action Now, which has the power to directly to stop harms at the policy level, at the statewide level, and to actually develop and advocate for different policies, right? That will support that work. And then also to actually build the alternative governing structures that will contend for power at these statewide levels, where we're really getting caught up around, well, if we defund police locally, the state is going to come in and retaliate, right? So I'm going to turn it over to Crystal and Ms. Jewel again to talk about their day-to-day work, how that ties into this vision and how we're going to get to that vision of community control. And then we're going to go over to Ponyu, and then we're going to turn it over to folks for questions. So if you have questions, please engage. Please drop them in the chats. And if you're watching on YouTube or on Facebook, we'll see it. So please go ahead and take it away, Crystal and Ms. Jewel.
Thanks, Maka. So I want to really focus in on the second part of what you were talking about, and really thinking about the investing in community and how we're using that to imagine alternatives to this system. So I want to talk briefly about two areas of our work, which is our people's budget work, as well as our mutual aid work. So around our people's budget work, we're working to educate our community around these systems towards an end of working to imagine an alternative that's more equitable for our community. And one of the goals with that is that we're having conversations with folks about where they will prioritize these investments. And like Ms. Jewel was saying earlier, prioritizing mental health, prioritizing rehab centers, prioritizing things that our community decides, right? And divesting from the systems that terrorize our communities. So it's layered with regard to that, and that's specifically around our people's budget work. And we're going to have more information on how you can get involved in that work, just because we need to hear from our community to help inform a lot of that. And with our mutual aid work, that's similar in that we're aware that our communities are disproportionately impacted by food insecurity, housing insecurity, access to a lot of these vital resources. So it's a network for addressing some of those inequities. And what we're doing with that is we're helping our community to imagine a world that is controlled by the community, that is where we are circulating these resources, that we're not allowing a authoritative figure, which is the reason why so many of our communities are disproportionately impacted, right? It's because of this white supremacist structure that chooses to divest from Black communities, from POC communities, from queer, trans, and intersex communities. So that's our way of doing that through our mutual aid work. And I'm going to pass it off to Ms. Jewel to talk a little bit more about the work we're doing in community power building.
And community power building, what we're doing first is we need to learn where our people at, which communities does our people live in, and what they need and what they would like to see happen in their community, and the changes that they would like to see done. And we also would like to give them knowledge when we find out where they are, and then we talk to them. We let them know what Freedom Inc. Is here to help them. Let them know that Freedom Inc. is here to help them. And how we do that is we tell them about who's running for what, and we tell them about what it means to vote for aldermen and why it's important to vote for aldermen. We help them get registered to vote if they're not registered to vote. We let them know that how important it is to vote and that every vote counts, and that's how change come about. We let them know that partake in the census when the census come around, if it only come around every 10 years, because that's what helps us get what we need for our community. We also give them knowledge about what's going on and around the town, and who's running for this, what they're fighting for, why they're turned down, ways that they can get involved in helping. We invite them to events that Freedom Inc. have. We ask them to come and join us. We invite them to come and volunteer so that they could see a part of Freedom Inc. and what they're doing and ways that we're all working together to help each other. We let them know that everything we're doing here in Freedom Inc. is for them, not only for us, it's for them, it's for our community, it's for our people. And even though we may not see a change right away, if we stick together and work together, change will come about. If our children have to see it. So yeah, we working hard here at Freedom Inc. for our people, for our communities, because that's what we're here for our people and our community.
And I want to also wrap that back into tying into the community control piece, because I think that's important for like outreach into our communities, educating our communities about these processes, right? Towards an end of having like community controlled resource distribution, community controlled budget, that we understand what our community's needs are, because we're having these types of conversations, right? And we are this community, right? So yeah, I think that also ties back into the community control piece.
And I just want to say one more thing. We also want our community to know that if you're suffering, then we're suffering. If you're struggling, then we're struggling, because we are all in this together. When you feel better, we feel better. When you get something to eat on your table, it's feeding our table. It's we're all one. We're all one big happy family here. And Freedom Inc. want to make sure that you learn what's going on in this community. And all you have to do is follow us online, or pick up one of our flyers, or see Miss Jewel walking down the street and, hey, didn't I, defund the police is really what we're talking about today.
I'll be at the office and hear Miss Jewel yelling at somebody from across the street like, "Hey, you voting yet? We got that pantry back there." So yeah, thank y'all so much for sharing about y'all work. And with our last couple of minutes here, we're gonna pass over to Pengyu, who's representing Freedom Action Now tonight, to talk about stopping those harms that come through policy from the statewide level, and also building alternatives to those really harmful systems.
Yeah, thank you, Monka, Crystal, and Miss Jewel. Yeah, we're talking, as we touched on earlier, like mitigating harms, right, and winning hearts and minds. There's the way Black communities, Southeast Asian communities are treated, are not given the resources we need, and the work that Freedom Inc. has done for decades to mitigate harms, right, on the local level, to remove cops from schools, to try to get more funding for our communities, which is amazing, and it's really brought on and built a huge following, because folks have really learned what Freedom Inc. stands for, and stands for the community. But one of the big things is that the state of Wisconsin at any time can legislate some type of policy law that can overrule any of the work that we've done on the local level. That's why I'm here to share about our new organization, pretty new, Freedom Action Now, which is a statewide arm with a sister organization to Freedom Inc., a 501c4, a Black and Southeast Asian Wisconsin-based political organization, working for the most impacted communities, doing voter education, leadership development, community organizing, and policy advocacy, right? So we can, while all this harm mitigation is done and getting folks involved and engaged to understand the issues that, and to analyze these issues that are affecting them, like policing and the stealing of resources away from our communities. While that's happening, we also understand that we have to move to a statewide level, on a strategic level, that we need to make these larger moves around legislation. And those moves, we know that we have to build alternatives, right? We can defund police, yes. But we are very realistic in the sense that we understand that harm happens, right? We're not gonna just magically make it disappear, but we're gonna make sure that, like Manka said, there is no white supremacist patriarchal authority figure coming in to lay down the law and disproportionately create violences against Black, Indigenous, and other people of color. We're going to build alternatives that are legitimate in the eyes of our people, right? We at Freedom Action Now, we're building a survivors council, right? Survivors of domestic violence and sexual assault, so that they can give us guidance from their lived realities of the violences that they face from the community and from the state, the government, because they know how to navigate and solve these root issues of harm, right? And that Survivors Council will compete as an alternative to the government, to the state, to providing solutions to our community's issues, right? And we believe that the community-led solutions are the way to go. And we know that survivors in the Survivors Council will get us there. So yeah, we as we work to mitigate harm, we know that we have to create alternatives. We have to create new legislation and policies led by our folks impacted in our communities, by survivors, to solve the issues that we are facing, and that especially has to be legitimate in the eyes of our people. So that's us at Freedom Action Now. Make sure you come check us out. Yeah, thank you.
Whew, okay. So now that you know why to defund the police, and that is just one step in gaining community control, and how Freedom Inc. is working to get us to that vision, now it's time to take action. You know, here at Freedom Inc., we don't just do PE sessions, it's political education and action. So you at home can take action today. And so, Zhang, if you can pull up our slides and we can talk about what are some steps that people can take in the coming weeks leading up to our May 1st action and mass mobilization. Then we'll go ahead and close out the panel. So one way you can take action today is by going to change.org/defund police Madison, Wisconsin, and going ahead and signing the petition to defund the Madison Police Department. We don't want one more Black person, Black human being, one more Black life to be stolen from us by the police. Every time you sign this petition, or a friend signs the petition, or a family member signs the petition, or a coworker signs the petition, the mayor, Satya Rose Conway, gets an email about this. And also like around the defunding part and then around the investing part too, because they go hand in hand. Our county executive, Joe Parisi, gets an email as well. Because the county does hold a lot of funds that are around like healthcare and housing. Another way, I think I don't know what number we're at right now, but we're over 5K with that petition. So please go ahead, run them numbers up, make sure they know, make sure their email is constantly dinging and letting them know defund the police. Enough is enough. We have had enough. No more Black death. And Black murder and us getting shot on the news every day, and people waking up to that, having to grieve from that. Another way that you can take action is to actually donate directly to Dante Wright's girlfriend, China, and his 2-year-old son, Dante Jr. And the Cash App that goes directly to China is a cash sign HUBBY98, and that's her Cash App, so you can send money directly to her that way. And then we also have a Holistic Ho, which is an organization that gets funds and support directly to Black women in crisis. There's a PayPal there. There's also the Venmo there. And then we also like to invite folks to take action with Freedom Inc. by attending our community organizing meetings. These meetings are taking place. Oh, new graphic. I had a typo on this one. There's a new one up though on our Facebook page and in our Instagram stories. But so it's going to be Monday, April 19th and Monday, April 26th. And it's going to be at the office 2110 Luann Lane from 5 to 7. We're going to have light refreshments and dinner to go. The point of this is that we want to hear from you. We want to hear from our community. Right? This is not a process where it's like, oh, Monka led a march and now we're all going to be free. This is not, we have to get rid of that false narrative of we have saviors and us just leading big marches or whatever is going to solve everything. Like Kayla said, powerful protests must become powerful campaigns. Freedom is the business of each and every one of us. So we all need to come together and put our heads together around what do we want our resources and our budget to look like. And we have the power to make that happen. We are powerful. We know this. We saw this when we got the police out of schools and we got the community oversight, the police oversight board. So please come to those organizing meetings, even if it's just a place for you to vent and say, I'm sick and tired. I'm sick and tired of my little nephew always being, stopped by the police every time they out at the basketball court. I'm sick and tired of them busting in here when I needed help. I wanted protection and help in the moment. I didn't want my loved one to go to prison. Right? Like these are the things we need to be hearing and healing through together and coming with solutions and saying, this is where I actually want this money to go. And then I'm going to go ahead and hand it back over to Crystal and Ms. Jewel and Panyu to talk about some more action steps that you can take with us on a weekly basis, right? If the petition wasn't enough for you, if coming to the organizing meeting ain't going to be enough for you, we got you. You want to come and actually do some of this like on the ground organizing work with us, we got you. So they'll share with you ways to get plugged in between now. And like I said, we're going to have a mass mobilization on May 1st. We're doing an open call to partners right now. So if you're a community group or an organization that's interested in Black liberation and Southeast Asian liberation and making sure that we get free and you're doing that work out there, we want to see you at these community meetings too. We want you to DM us on Facebook and Instagram. We want you to send an email to our info email so that we can link up with you, right? This don't always got to be a Freedom Inc. production, right? We want everybody to be in on it. And we don't want folks to show up feeling like, oh, I ain't get the invite. I ain't know what was going on. Woo woo. No, reach out to us so we can get decided around this action and really have something powerful that's for all of us. So again, I'm gonna go ahead and hand it over to Crystal and Ms. Jewel and Panyu for some final ways that you can plug in.
Again, I'm Ms. Jewel. One way you can plug in is look us up on Facebook Live, Freedom Inc. Another way you could call in and volunteer. We always looking for volunteers to help us out. We canvas a lot. Stop by one of our pop-ups or maybe even stay a while and help us. at our pop-up. Just help us get our
Tell us about tell us about them, Miss Jewel. What's
our
happening Thursdays and Fridays?
what'd she say?
Yeah, so if we can have someone drop the CPB volunteer link in the chat, that way we can plug you into some direct actions we have coming up. We're going to be canvassing, door knocking to get people to these community meetings every Thursday up until May. And like Ms. Jewel said, we're doing pop-ups. You have the opportunity to provide some mutual aid stuff to the communities just to get folks down here.
Phone calls. We're
yeah.
doing phone banking. You can make calls to get people here. You know, we just want you to spread the news, what Freedom Inc. is doing, and that what all Freedom Inc. is doing it for you, for your communities. We want to hear what you got to say. Not only you hear what we have to say, but we want to hear what you got to say. We want to hear what you want to see done. We want to know what's on your mind. What change are you looking for? So stop by, give us a call. There's always a number. What's the number? 716. Finish.
Somebody can also drop the number in the chat. But yeah, like Ms. Jewel was saying, we have some specific things that we want y'all to tap into over the next 3 weeks. And the best way to do that is to go ahead and plug your information into the CPB volunteer link, and we can reach out to you to coordinate how you can plug in over the next 3 weeks.
We also have a 24-hour. We also have a 24-hour food pantry with no contact that you could just stop by anytime of the day and open up the cabinet doors outside, get what you want. No one has to be hungry in this community. We're here to help you.
Thank you, Crystal and Ms. Jewel. Thank you for the amazing work that y'all are doing. And thanks for joining tonight. And we're going to close it out with Panyu. What is FAN doing in these next couple weeks that people can get plugged in around, defunding the police and making sure that we're prepared to throw down around the budget cycle?
Yeah, thanks. So we are also getting involved in the city budget cycle. It happens every year, and it starts right around now, and it just keeps getting more and more busy into the fall. Join us. We're texting folks around how they feel around the police, the $86 million budget that they got for this year, and that they likely will get more money next year as well, because it's been the trend for the last I think it was 5 or 10 years that they've just been increasing. So we're going to be texting folks about that. Volunteer with us. As you can see, there's a lot of ways to plug in with Freedom Inc. and with FAN, Freedom Action Now. So you can see our link at bit.ly/volunteer-FAN. And I will support you in getting how to have conversations with folks through our texting program. So make sure you sign up to volunteer with us at Freedom Action Now.
Okay, I'm so excited, y'all. So we just got
just think what all you could do, the community could do, if we get the police defund and we get that money in our hand. How much help can we do for our community? So let's all come together as one and defund the police so that we can help each other out. We can keep each other safe.
Yes, Miss Jewel. Look, you ain't got to tell Miss Jewel to talk to people about the work that we're doing. You can tell she about this life. So yeah, I'm so excited to close this out. Now that we got this education, now that we got these action steps, I'm very excited for what we can accomplish over the next 3 weeks leading up to our May 1st action. And so I just want to close us out with that in mind, that again, tomorrow, come and door knock with us. We'll be in the Coho neighborhood, right around the office, 4 to 7. Come through, or is it 3 to 7?
It's
3 to 7. Yeah, so 3 to 7, come through, meet us at the office. We don't want anybody out there on their own. We'll pair up. And you don't have to stay the whole 4 hours, but definitely come door knock with us. And then on Friday, come through, drive through at the office and really share in our and what we're saying that we actually keep each other safe and we provide the things that we need during our mutual aid pop-up, which is 1 to 3. 1 to 3, great. And then they got so much going on, it's hard to keep track of sometimes. But and then on Tuesdays, like Peng said, send some text messages and demand that your alder actually defunds the police. Send them the petition. A demand that they take action because they're the ones who control that at the city level. We just had an election, and these people just asked for our votes. So they need to get to work for us and for what we need. So yeah, with that, I want to thank everyone for joining us. I hope you all have a great rest of your night. And I hope to see you out in the streets tomorrow. And love and power, everybody.
Thank you.